review comes around where, after I'm done playing the game, the only thing I can say is, what do you expect me to say?
This problem arises with games that are sequels and are on older systems. It has to do with hardware and memory limitations. But yet, if you point to a JRPG, you question how they can do so much with the amount of space they're limited to. But yet, even with limitations, there are ways to keep things fresh and new. The original Crash series, for example, did things different for each game. The second was an improvement over the first, and the third added a variety of new gameplay elements to keep the game from feeling stale. But with the third Spyro game, someone didn't throw out the old donuts and decided to put them back on the shelf and sell them as new, especially when those donuts weren't from the previous day, but the day before. I really had to push myself to play this game. It's not bad, but because, like I said in my Shovel Knight review, I've done this all before, and now I'm just going through the motions, and I actually started to fall asleep playing this game because I got so bored with it.
Within the first hour and a half, I became extremely disinterested. It's Spyro 2 with Spyro 1's story with a new coat of paint.
Spyro 3 was in development for 10 months for the PlayStation 1, and that's probably about average, as it was a very easy system to develop for. There wasn't a lot of time needed, especially for sequels. All they really needed to do was recycle the engine, update graphics, tweak the gameplay, and bring in a new story. What Spyro 3 adds is more organization for the levels, as there's areas where there's mini-games and side quests are clearly marked and designed to load separately so that players won't be confused on where to go. They also added in something called an auto-tuning challenge, pretty much making the game easier if you suck or more challenging if you're good at it. They added in separate characters that you could play as for certain areas to make the game, in their words, more enjoyable, because they didn't want to add more moves to Spyro. This would also be the last Spyro game that Insomniac would develop, and from there the series would be developed by other developers, and it's been said that the series from Enter the Dragonfly up to Skylanders has been absolutely terrible. I would not know as I haven't played those games, but we'll come to that road eventually.
However, the new features that were added in just add monotony and a lack of focus. The game goes from a collectathon platformer to a collectathon minigame-a-thon platformer.
Before I get into that, I'll do my usual rundown. The graphics look the same as Spyro 2. IGN said that they were updated, but I can't tell the difference. The animation is a bit better, though it's more cartoonish and pretty close to how Ratchet and Clank would be animated, almost as if it's a precursor to the series. The music is very good, and I really enjoyed the music from the ice level. The voice acting is really good, but mostly consists of Tom Kenny voicing anything that's male except for Hunter, who's actually not an annoying character, but his model still looks like a trash can with a hinged lid. The button setup is exactly like Spyro 2, and Spyro has all his moves from it, but actually controlling Spyro is very sensitive, almost overly precise like Sonic 06, where just the slightest nudge of the analog stick or D-pad will send Spyro flying in that direction. Charging is looser than it was in previous titles, and it doesn't feel like controlling a tank. I feel that I can be as precise as I want to be, but when you get the supercharge power up, all that goes out the window and it's like running on ice. The overall control just doesn't feel natural, and the second Spyro feels a lot better in terms of control. It was just more accurate, especially when it came to running and spitting objects.
Spyro 2 was just more cohesive in its gameplay. It knew what it wanted to do, but Spyro 3 is just more scatterbrained. It feels like it doesn't know what it's supposed to do.
In Spyro 2, you go around collecting orbs. You start at the beginning of a level, defeat enemies until you get to the end, and are rewarded with an orb. There's also side quests that you can do to get orbs by helping other people or just through general exploration. In Spyro 3, you'll get an egg once you get to the end of the level or through general exploration. But to get more eggs, you need to complete minigames, like riding on a skateboard and small sections where you need to play as a different character, which may be a nice change of pace for some, but not for others, and especially not me. You'll notice these areas as they're separate from the main level with black swirling vortexes. When you find a portal with a sign that has a picture of a character on it, you'll be playing as that character. The kangaroo can jump, double jump, and high jump if you press jump again right when you land. She's also very fast and hard to control, but has a very short range attack. The penguin can fly, but it's more like floating, and he fires missiles along with picking up and dropping objects. There's a Yeti that I didn't even bother to try out, and if there's a fourth character to unlock, I don't know, as I became extremely disinterested at the third world and just stopped caring. And that was at the 3-hour mark. So it's not a very long game, but it pads itself out with its unforgiving method of progression.
Granted, the second game didn't do progression that well either. The first one did a lot better, but Banjo-Kazooie is still the king of progression when it comes to collectathon games.
In the first Spyro, you would go through the levels and free dragons from their crystal prisons, and you could go to any level you wanted in the hub world and only needed a certain number of dragons to go to the next world, allowing you to skip around. The second Spyro allowed you to go to only a certain few levels but needed orbs to open up the rest of the hub world to continue. In the third, you can go anywhere in the hub world but can only access about 2 portals, and the rest you need to have a certain number of dragon eggs collected, or you need to pay money bags to free a character so that you can go into their level to collect eggs. and you'll be allowed to access their small sections of levels to grab those eggs. This is one of the things that I criticized the last Spyro game for. Side quests and minigames should not be mandatory to complete a game, but should be used for bonus things and replayability. For example, Crash Bandicoot had collectibles and items that you can grab, but those were all optional. But you did get a different ending if you got everything. But let's look at Banjo-Kazooie, a game that's built around collecting items. You can explore the area, gain new abilities, use those abilities to explore more areas, and find what you need to help NPCs in need. However, you could easily find the items and skate by with the bare minimum. Spyro combines the two aspects, get to the end of the stage but also explore it, but the minimum requirement is much higher.
I feel like I can't go at my own pace here, which is generally a fast one. All this side stuff is just slowing me down, and even when I complete that stuff, it doesn't feel fulfilling.
I felt with Spyro 2 that after reaching the end of a level that I had accomplished something, but not here. The levels feel shorter, although they're supposed to be bigger, but the developers could have meant bigger because the new instance areas added to the level size, which in that case, the levels as a whole are bigger but not the main areas. And while you may say that the minimum requirement to open more portals being a higher number adds challenge, I would agree with you if it weren't for the need to complete side quests and minigames. If the levels were more open like they were in Spyro 2, then I would feel different about it, but they just feel as linear as the levels in Spyro 1. And when we get to the plot, it's like the first Spyro game. Instead of rescuing dragons from crystal prisons, you're rescuing dragon eggs. Yeah, the new villain has a different motive and all, but does that really matter? You're rescuing dragons like you did in the first game, and it's the same premise. It feels like Spyro 3 is just recycling the previous two games, and I feel that it suffers greatly because of it. The way the game transitions to cutscenes is sloppy as well. It's a picture with a Photoshop filter over it, and an ugly filter at that, and it says what's going to happen. And when it ends, you see the same picture with the adventure continues. It's just so lazy.
As you can probably already tell, I don't think that this game has aged that well. Its predecessors are much better in comparison. And in my opinion, this is the weakest of the Spyro Trilogy on the PlayStation.
Despite what I've said, I don't think Spyro 3 is a bad game. It's well crafted, and really the only thing I don't care for on the technical aspect is that the control is very sensitive. But it's something that I can live with. But the game feels very recycled and forces you into side quests and minigames that you may not want to do, which will have you exploring for side quests that you may want to do, or have you explore for eggs to see what you can find. And this is what I meant by that I can't go at my own pace. While Spyro 2 let me go at my own pace but slammed me with a huge toll booth where I didn't have enough orbs to continue, Spyro 3 had me hitting toll booths more frequently. Looking back on Spyro 2, I really did enjoy it, and I really want to enjoy this game as much as I did the previous ones. I really tried to enjoy this game, but I find it to be so boring because it's like I played it already, and the new characters add monotony rather than a fresh experience. But that's just my experience with this game. I don't expect anyone else to feel the same way that I do, so if you really enjoyed it, that's great. I only paid $2 for this game on a PlayStation Network flash sale, so I don't feel ripped off, just disappointed because I enjoyed the other games so much more. So to answer the question that I proposed at the start, well, it's a Spyro game.
To me, the game as a whole is just okay. On a technical aspect, it's good because everything functions very well. I guess I was just expecting more than what I got.